Welcome to Shul.com. We are here at the Surfside night, Kolel Seder, and we are discussing from PeNiNe Halacha all different types of halachot that have to do with Hanukah and for Sfaradim. So we were talking about what is the mitzvah of how many candles you need to light. So according to the halacha, if you lit one candle every night in a little vessel, in a keli, you are covered with your mitzvah. If you want to light one candle for every soul that's in the house that's above bar mitzvah, that would be the second opinion. And then there's a third opinion where you light every day one candle for every single day, and you go up as the days go by. That was Bet Hillel's opinion. Bet Shammai's opinion was that you started with 8 and you would work your way down. Initially, when you hear Bet Shammai's opinion, you think, what kind of opinion is this? I understand doing every day going up one candle, Ma'alim Bakodesh Ve'en Moridim, which means that we go up with spiritual actions, not down. So what was Bet Shammai really telling me here? Unless there was something seemingly unknown, at least to the masses, on Bet Shammai's opinion. So I thought this was really interesting. When the Yevanim came to the temple on the 25th of Kislev, they kept a stronghold for about 3 years. And within those 36 months, they defiled the Mizbeach. They would bring not kosher animals on it. They would bring pigs. They put in statues inside of the temple. They made a Bet Zonot, like a bunch of house of prostitutes inside the Bet HaMikdash. They defiled it tremendously, maybe even more than if it would have been destroyed. They really defiled it in many different ways. And for 3 years, they kept their stronghold on there. The last holiday that they could not keep, Am Yisrael, was the holiday of Sukkot. So on the 25th of Kislev, when the Hashmonaim and the children of Matityahu come in and they finally get back the Beit HaMikdash and they start cleaning it up, Bnei Israel didn't know what to do with their last holiday. See, today we don't have a Beit HaMikdash, so we understand that there's certain rules of how to behave, which halachot to do. Back then, when they didn't have a Beit HaMikdash, they didn't know what do you do. And normally with Pesach, a normal Pesach, there is what's called a Pesach Sheni. So this is brought down in Sefer HaMakkabim in the later volumes of volume 3 and 4. You'll see it. It's a 4-volume book. It's part of the Sefarim Hitzonim, or what's called the Apocrypha, but it has all the stories of what happened in the Maccabim, their whole history. So the first Sefer Maccabim discusses a lot of the battles and the military prowess and how they were able to win in the guerrilla warfare with such few people, a very big army. The second book discusses a lot of the martyrdom that was done by the Jews to give up their life in order to not become Hellenized, and that was the second part of the book. So each part of the book has a discussion as to which part of the miracle was the one that gave the most zichuyot in the eyes of God. Obviously, we don't take credit for the military prowess, not today and not back then. But it was very miraculous that according to many opinions, it was about 13, maybe 17, 18, under 20 people went and took over about 1.5 million Assyrian Greeks and killing them out. It's not a small number. So and remember, these are not Goliaths that have Goliaths that were going out there that were well versed in military techniques and tactics. These were rabbis. They were sitting at home learning Gemara and learning things. But it's kind of interesting because you see this a little bit in Lakewood in New Jersey, how you have a lot of boys, bachurim, they're learning in yeshiva, and after yeshiva they go to Beit Midrash. Sometimes they go to Israel, they go to other yeshivot, and they continue learning till their early 20s. They get married, they're still learning, and then seemingly you wonder, how's this guy gonna have a parnasah? He has a basic education. They're smart, they're all smart kids, and they're all blessed, but you wonder, what's gonna be? And then suddenly they start working 25, 26, 27, and they have a tremendous amount of beracha, and they seem to do better than some of their counterparts who went to college, who went and got all those loans, and when they become. It goes to show you that obviously when you do it with L'Shem Shamayim for the right intentions, Hashem will set up the pieces in there. And what we're seeing today is obviously higher education is very important. Education and trades and professions are all important. But we are seeing today that it is a little bit of a rat race game that is rigged against the individual. Seemingly, an individual is going to spend the first 20 years of his life working and acquiring debt, then the next 20 years paying it off, and then seemingly one thing after another, then one regulation and one law, one change after another. Next thing you know, he's in his late 60s, still trying to figure out what happened in his early 20s with a regular parnasah for him and his family. It's sad, but it goes to show you, and it's kind of the story with the Yevanim. So what happens is the Hashwanim come, they take over, they finally get the HANUKAH Mizbeach, they go, they re-inaugurate the Mizbeach, they're cleaning up, and they light the menorah outside, like we said. Normally you would light the menorah inside the Kodesh and the Hechal. It was covered by curtains. But here they took it out because they were fixing and cleaning, and that was part of the miracle. Is that normally they wanted to put, according to some of the opinions, 1/8 of oil inside. If you light it indoors and it lit 1/8 of the night, it would have been a big thing. If it would have lit the whole night indoors, that would have been a miracle. Here it was 1/8 of oil being lit outdoors in a cold Jerusalem climate. It was windy, rainy, and so that was for the miracle. But if you look at many of the books, with the exception of Masechet Ta'anit and a couple of references, it seems that the miracle of the oil was not the miracle the rabbis were trying to get to us to commemorate. Because seemingly, there's a few thoughts on this, and Rabbi Breidowitz goes into it, is that what effect would that have been on Klal Yisrael if their oil lit for one more night or not, or 8 nights? Seemingly would have been very minimal, menial, or even important for that matter. Don't forget, for 3 years they didn't light the menorah, and they didn't do the service in the Beit HaMikdash. So why suddenly now this oil is seemingly so important? So I saw a couple of really interesting thoughts, really, really nice ones. One of them is that the miracle of the oil was one that really, it happened, and no one's, I don't think anyone's questioning, at least not in the Orthodox world, that it didn't happen. But that probably was not what the Chachamim were wanted from us on the holiday of Hanukkah. They wanted from us to celebrate the re-inauguration of the Mizbeach, being able to bring the Korbanot, and winning the battle to take over the Beit HaMikdash. That was seemingly at the forefront, and that's why the holiday is Shevach Vehoda'ah, Halel, Shevach, Hoda'ah, which is specifically thanking God for things in our life which may seem as coincidence sometimes, but they're really miracles. And that's the ikad. Now it makes sense as to why the miracle of the lights of the oil would have been something that became more famous later on. The simple meaning, because even if it did happen, which we believe it did happen, and we're not Has v'Shalom questioning whether or not it happened or not, it would have been a miracle that would have been seen by very few. Just the Kohanim lighting it, and even the Kohanim that really knew that lit it, because someone that seemingly was just watching the candles wouldn't know this. So it was seemingly something that was within a close knit of Jews. It wasn't out in the masses, but it was well known that, hey, how did a bunch of very few handful of people take over this tremendous army? That was a big miracle. Getting back to Mizbeach, that was a huge miracle. And also, the miracle of the oil in and of itself might have been a miracle that would have been at the forefront for them to celebrate, to make a whole holiday. We had much bigger things to make a holiday for. What about the man coming down in Shamayim for 40 years, that we ate from it, and it had any flavor you wanted, or the Be'er Miriam? Now we do have a holiday for the Ananei HaKavod, that's Sukkot. But the reason why we have the holiday of Sukkot is that we originally had them, and God took them away with the Chet HaEgel, when they danced around the calf, and everyone danced around it. God took away the Ananei HaKavod, and that's security and protection, but he didn't take away the man or the Be'er Miriam. So the water and the food continued, but the clouds of glory went away. And when they came back, after Moshe Rabbeinu came down and he said, Salachti Givarecha on Yom Kippur, and he told them that God wants you to do a Mishkan, collect money, and after 4 days where he was able to collect everything, and God saw the love of the people for this project, the Ananei HaKavod come back, and then we celebrate Sukkot. So why do this seemingly just for the lights? So I saw a really nice opinion that stated, after the Greeks, the Romans came in, and the Romans questioned, originally they didn't. The Romans originally just wanted high taxes and control and to be in charge. They didn't care so much about the religion. They were not after that. The Greeks were after the religion. The Romans were more of, hey, just do what you got to do, pay up, we're in charge, we're going to control the ports and things like that. But you can do your religion. That's why during the Second Temple with Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai, who wasn't a Nasi, but he gets the title of Rabban for the greatness that he was. And it's interesting to note that he wasn't the top student in his class. He was actually the last of his students.
Wow.
And he seemingly was at the forefront later on in life, which goes to show you, even a kid is not the top in his class, he'll do well. That's why they say, they say, be careful with the children of the poor people, that from them will come the Torah. What do you mean from the poor people? I could show you from very rich people that Torah comes from it. So it's not talking about a financial wealth. It's talking about the children that are poor in their intellect, poor in the attention you are giving to them, poor in the attention that they are getting. Not poor money-wise, poor in everything else, meaning, I never give that kid attention. How did he become the top of his class after 10 years? Or seemingly this kid couldn't pay attention, or he wouldn't listen. So poor in the realm of other things, not financial, you'll see from them that they will come to. And I'm sure it also means that from poor financial, also you'll see, because we do see that a lot, that it comes. But we also see the opposite. We see Moshe Rabbeinu. He was from a wealthy, rich family, grew up in the pastor. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, very rich. Rabbi Elazar ben Hadsom, Kohen Gadol, also very rich. Many Gedolim that were very, very rich. Rabbi Hista, we also had very poor rabbis. You had Hillel, who was poor, and you had others that were poor. But in that realm, it's usually the students that didn't get the attention. That childhood trauma of a sort affects the psychology and the mental thinking of the student. He grows up, he feels he needs this, and he seemingly strives to go above and beyond even those that got the pat on the back or that were very successful. They always say, when talent doesn't hustle, those without talent will succeed, which means sometimes talent is very, very available and very well known. A person has a good talent, but if he doesn't hustle and work with his talent, the guy who has less talent, who's less qualified, if he just worked hard, he will succeed. And they say, they always say in life, just do, even if it's not perfect. I always watch these interviews with a lot of these big CEOs like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. I like to hear their tactics. What did they say about how they succeeded? And more so than not, they always say the same thing. They never knew where things were going to go, but they kept on doing. The fact and the act of just doing is what allows growth. And this is part of the message of Hanukkah, is that how would such a small army, few people, rabbis, not really skilled, go out and take over such a powerful Assyrian Greek army? And the answer is, it's really not your business to try to figure that out. And like it says in Pirkei Avot, Lo alecha lilmod melacha. It's not your job to try to figure out how they did it, but it's your job to do. Your job to go to battle, have an army, set yourself up, and do what you need to do. You must do. Lo ben chorim lehipater mimena, which means you're not a free man to just say, okay, it's impossible to do that project, so we're not going to begin. God says you must begin. Yeah.
But that was clearly miraculous. I mean.
Yes.
It's not like that's not like a skill set.
100%.
Purely, it's miraculous.
And that is the message of the Jew today, is that how are we still surviving? We're so few people, so much persecution. It's just better off to give up. And seemingly is one of the options. Some people have taken it. But what we see as a Jew, especially on Hanukkah, is that God says, listen, you do that little light. You just take those 12, 13 people, 17 people, whatever that number is. Rashi says 13. You take those few Maccabim, those Kohanim, and you just go out and you do with the most that you can, and I'll take over from there. And that's the message of Hanukkah, is that just do what you need to do, and God will take over. And going back to Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai with the Romans, is that the Romans, seemingly, according to Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai, he told them, don't rebel, because your rebellion is not a religious rebellion, it's a political rebellion. You're upset because they're controlling the taxes, hard. They have to pay a lot of rules, a lot of laws. It's difficult. I got it. But they're allowing us to learn Torah, teach Torah. This was before any of their gezerot and their evil decrees. Those evil decrees came after the rebellion. Then they decided to crush Yerushalayim, destroy the nation, and they tell them you can't learn Torah. But prior to that, the Romans were not against it. They seemingly would have allowed it had they continued to have a diplomatic type of relationship.
What changed? Like what?
The rebellion. When the moment that the Jews started to rebel, and
Jews,
and they rebelled, and when that started,
Really?
the Romans came down hard. And then there was other things like the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, where you had this guy who was embarrassed in public. None of the rabbis stuck up for him. No one gave him any consolation. So he picked up. He went to Rome. He told them they're trying to rebel against you. It was internal strife. And they blame him as being one of the reasons as to why the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. But you see from this that when the Romans were taking over and they allowed them to have their holidays, you can imagine they have this holiday of Chanukah that they're celebrating, because Chanukah was before the Romans, it was during the Greek time. And I don't think the Romans would have been too thrilled to hear that they're celebrating a few nights of lighting candles in order to celebrate the destruction of their oppressor. So they probably would have told them, listen, what are you lighting these Hanukkah candles for? You don't believe it, there were the Greeks before you, and they tried to oppress us, so we crushed them and destroyed them with a tiny little army, and now we celebrate. So they probably told them, hey, listen, we're celebrating because the oil of the Beit HaMikdash stayed a couple of extra nights. Oh, okay, fine. And then they continued. And we know that there were many times in history where they hid certain reasons, even the Gemara, things of Yeshu, of Jesus, taking him out and not mentioning him in different places in the Gemara because they couldn't. The printing presses originally had to be approved by the Pope, by the Vatican. There was Daniel Bomberg, who in Venice printed many Jewish works, including the style of the Gemara that we have of the Bavli. He was a Christian, and he did it because he wanted to learn. He did steal a lot of his work from the Soncino family, the Italian family, who we might know them from the old Queen's English Chumashim. I still have a bunch of them at home. Sometimes I open it to read it just to see, the interpretation. So this guy Bomberg seemingly printed a lot of stuff, but a lot of things on Yeshu and of Christianity had to be removed for censor purposes, and it was well known. So the idea of the lights being the main part of the mitzvah today, or I should say the main reason why people think that is why we have the holidays, is wrong. I think that saying that in and of itself as the only reason is inaccurate, and I think that it makes more sense in regards to looking at what the Hachamim actually put into the text on the Ala Nisim, Ala Purkan, where they talk about the battle, about the few amongst the many, about the wicked, about the righteous against the wicked, and all those other characteristics of the holiday. This was a tremendous thing, and we were looking at Sefer Dorot HaKatzir earlier. Even though they won this battle and they took over, the Greeks continued to attack them for close to 26 years. Afterwards, they continued to attack until they had other forces coming in from the outside, whether it was the Romans or other militaries attacking from the outside. Then they seemingly stopped on it. So, just an interesting part. So we were talking about the last holiday that they couldn't celebrate was Sukkot. And you seemingly look at Shammai's opinion, and he says you take from 8 and you go down to 7 and 6 and 3. And you see from it there doesn't seem to be a connection, but there is. Because on Sukkot, which is the last holiday before Chanukah, it's also 8 days. And on those 8 days, you bring korbanot, you bring sacrifices in the Beit HaMikdash. But the sacrifices go from 14 on the first day to 13, 12, 11, 12, and work their way down. And then the last day, they bring one korban, and that's for Bnei Israel. And so seemingly, when you look at the last holiday, that's exactly how it was done. Why? Did God not know Ma'alim Bakodesh and Moridim? Of course he knew that. But he felt that this was the right way when it came to the Korbanot, to have a downward spiral, I guess, in a direction to go down on the Korbanot. And seemingly, Bet Shammai might have made that connection. The reason I say that also is that there's 8 days of Sukkot and there's 8 days of Hanukkah.
Right.
Also, there's the 8 days of Sukkot and the 8 days of Hanukkah are the only 2 holidays we have the whole year that you say Hallel with a beracha every single day. And we read the Torah every single day. It doesn't happen on any other, even on Pesach.
Does it say Pesach?
Pesach, no, we don't say Hallel with the beracha every day. We don't. So it's interesting, and all these things are important. Now it does say in Sefer HaMakkabim, volume 3 and 4, when you look into it, that they did celebrate the holiday of Sukkot on the 25th of Kislev. This is why these books are called Sefarim Chisonim, and they're not accepted as halacha. We only look at them sometimes for historical purposes and for some research, but not for halacha, because there's no such a thing as making up Sukkot. You can't make up Sukkot a second time, but seemingly it may have been done, and the Chachamim just didn't want to even discuss or mention it because it's not something that had any value in the eyes of the Chachamim, but it's something that might have been done by the masses as was written there. And so just an interesting part. You see that other connection of Sukkot, of that the Korbanot went down, so seemingly Beit Shammai's opinion of the candles going down has value. There's also 8 days and 8 days. It's the last holiday that they couldn't do together. And there's many other connections. Hacham Salman Musafi has the custom of the Sigula that we did here, where we take a part of our tzchach from Sukkot and we break up the tzchach into little pieces to put as pitilot inside the cotton wicks, so that you make a connection from the mitzvah deoraita, from the Torah, from the Sukkot, and you carry it into Hanukah. You bring them in. I thought that was really nice, only because you're really taking from one mitzvah to another, from a deoraita to a derabanan, and it's another connection of Sukkot into the holiday of Hanukah. And we also said that the reason why they did 8 days of the holiday, not 7, there's a few reasons. One of them is that the Greeks were trying to uproot Brit Milah, and many Jews gave up their life for it, and they also separated from their wife when they realized that their wife couldn't go to the mikveh for nidah, so they were willing not to be together with their wife. And because of that, they wanted an 8-day holiday to commemorate the Brit Milah, the 8 days, because otherwise you would have told me it's just 7 days. Yeah. 7 days is the amount of the menorah. And it's interesting because when you look, you see the word chashmonaim has in it shemen, oil, also shmona, right? Chashmonaim is shmona yamim. So you have a lot of the 8 comes up on a few things, and 8 is always the above nature. 7 is the 7 days of the week. 8 is always that 8th day. And so that brings more into it. So let's take a look what it says here. So he says the 3 levels of the mitzvahs: 1 candle, or 1 for each person in the house, that's above bar mitzvah. Or the third one is you would go up according to Bet Hillel, 1 candle every day. But he says that's what's called mehadrin min ha-mehadrin. It's the best of the best, meaning there's the normal mitzvah, there's the better mitzvah, and then there's the best of the best. And it's interesting that on this holiday of Hanukkah, everyone does the best of the best, and all these opinions are opinions of the rabbis. Remember, this is not the Oraita, this is all opinions of the rabbis, and you are okay with even a lower tier one, but everyone does the best. What's another message that we could see from this, which I thought is a great message, is that what were the Greeks really in essence trying to do? They were not really uprooting the Torah in and of itself, because they wanted the Torah to be translated into Greek, which they did. It called the Septuagint. Talmai, the king, ended up translating the Torah to Targum HaShiv'im, and he ended up doing it. And many of the Jews became Hellenists. They became what's called Siddukim, or Baitosim, but mostly Siddukim, where they don't follow what the rabbis say. They agree with the Torah and their own personal interpretations, but only whatever is strictly in the Bible. If it says in the Bible to do something, we do it. If it's not in the Bible, we don't do it. You kind of hear people like that today. Show me in the Torah where it says to do that. Not everything's in the Torah. Most things are not in the Torah. Yes, we can find references and hints, but in and of themselves to tell me everything's in Torah, no, it's not. And so the Greeks were of that opinion. They were Hellenists. They were not out to kill the Jews. They were out to kill the religion. They were out to just remove the religion, become one culture with us, all become one. Don't worry about all that other stuff. Focus on our philosophy, on our art, our architecture, mathematics. We are the best in the best navy, the best military, and they were at the forefront of that. They were just saying, just drop the religious part of it. And what is the religion today? And what has kept the religion alive? It's not just Limud Torah, but it's also the Chachamim. It's the rabbis and the opinion of the rabbis. And the rabbis never seemingly have a consensus in one opinion, and that's okay. That's part of being Jewish, is having different ideas, different thoughts within the context, obviously, of the guidelines, you would call them. But that was always a common thing. Different opinions, different halachot, Sephardim, Ashkenazim, Timanim, Hasidim, different sects of Hasidim. One agrees, one doesn't agree. That's okay. It's okay to disagree. We don't get upset when there's different opinions. That's all we do in the Gemara. Give me different opinions and then try to understand the other opinions. But that's what the Greeks were trying to pull away. They're trying to pull away the chokhmah of the rabbis, of the Talmudists. And so on the holiday of Hanukkah, besides us celebrating the holiday of the victory of the war and of the re-inauguration of the altar of the Mizbeach, is that when we're doing the mitzvah, we don't just do it at level 1, which just would be kosher, 1 candle for every household, or 1 for every soul. We go and say, rabbis, which one was the best of the best? And we take the best of the best from the opinion of the rabbis to say, that was what the Greeks were after. They were after the rabbis and their opinions. So even though we could get away with just a simple one, and maybe that's okay when you're on vacation and maybe you only have 1 candle, but with the normal thing, even the Jew that's the least religious, he wants a Hanukkah that has on it 8 branches, where every day he does 1, which is Mehadrim and HaMehadrim, which is seemingly God had set forth the tone that what ended up happening to us is that by default, we're doing the best of the opinion of the rabbis, which was exactly what the Greeks didn't want. They were out of it, and so seemingly today, you see everyone doing the best of the mitzvah for this one thing. So he says, L'minhag Yotzei Sfarad, for those who left Spain, or the Edut HaMizrach, the far eastern communities, Ikara Yidur she'yedliku nerot lefi mispar yamim, is that you should light according to the days of the week of Hanukkah, of the 8 days. Even when you have a lot of people in your house, only one person in your house lights a Hanukkah. A lot of times what happens is, my kids included, they go to Ashkenaz school and they learn Ashkenaz customs and they learn the Hasidic customs, and they want to each light. And I explain to them, it's great, that's a different opinion, but we do in the house only one. And we tell them we don't do it. And for the idea of chinuch, we don't tell them, okay, you light also for chinuch. No, the chinuch of educating them is telling them, no, we specifically don't. And this time, okay, you're not going to have a private one to light, but I assure you, with other customs, we'll have more attention to you. Yeah, we'll make up for it. B'yom Rishon madlik ner echad, the first day you light 1. B'yom hasheni 2, second day. U'b'shemini 8. Mipnei she'hamatara leharot et mispar hayamim she'hanes nimshach, that we are showing the days that the miracle lasted of the oil. Shebezeh mitparsem hanes yoter, and by this it would be more well known. If you walked on a window and you saw just 1 candle inside of a window, you wouldn't know. But if you would see, even just if you saw 4, if there was only 4 members of the household, you wouldn't know. But by seeing 1 every day, you'd be able to see the days of the week, of the 8 days of it was going up the miracle, and it would just speak to you more. And if every single person in the house is going to light a Hanukkah next to the window, no one's going to really be able to tell. There's going to see a bunch of lights all over the place. You would see all these Hanukkahs all together, and you would lose the count as to what it was. The oldest one in the house, the father, should do it. He shouldn't give it to the kids to do it. He should do it himself. Let's say the kids want to light. What you should do is you should take the Beracha and light the first one. Always you're going left to right when you're standing in front of the Hanukkah. And the other side is facing the window, so you light left to right, and then after you do the first one, then you can give it to the kids if you want to continue. If shalatit lahem lahadlik Hanukkah la'atzmam, ובלבד שיקפיד להפריד בין החנוכיות למנהג רבים יוצאי ספרד לא יברכו. So he says here, if the kids are really bothering you and they really want to light, you can light it in a different place on the side without a beracha. ולדעת מורנו הרב מרדכי אליהו עד גיל בר מצווה רשאים לברך. It says until bar mitzvah, according to Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, they do make a beracha on the Hanukkah.
Really?
Yeah. So he brings down, ואם גם לאחר מכן יצאו להדליק נרות בברכה, ואביהם מסכים לכך, and if they want to, the kids, and the father is okay with it, יוכלו לסמוך על הרב שלום מסס, שכתב שגם בוגרים שרוצים לזכות לברכה, רשאים לכוון שלא לצאת להדלקת אביהם, ואזי יוכלו להדליק נרות בברכה. Okay, so he brings this Yalkut Shemesh or Hayim Kuf Sadi Bet. So what is he saying here? He's saying that even though if you want the little kids to do it, the custom of Sfaradim is not to make a beracha, but Rav Mordechai Eliyahu is allowed until the bar mitzvah that they can make a beracha. Why would he allow them below bar mitzvah, not older? As for chinuch, to train them, so they would know the beracha. Otherwise, don't forget, until I got married, 21, I never said the beracha of lighting the Chanukah. I would say it by my father's house. So that was the first time I said it. If I would have been younger and had been 4, 5, 6 years old, just saying the beracha, practicing, you get to be a little bit more familiar. Otherwise, the first time, now, of course, it's an easy beracha, it's not a big deal, you're looking to see do it. But there is a concept of chinuch, of getting a little bit more educated and used to it. So Rav Mordechai Eliyahu says, under bar mitzvah you do it. And Rav Shalom Masas, his opinion was that if the older ones want to say the beracha and the father is okay with it, then seemingly they could. Yeah, he would be okay with it. As long as they say upon themselves, I'm not going to be yotzeh, or what like Rabbi Mansur says is a negative kavanah. Negative kavanah means I'm specifically not going to be covered with the other person doing the mitzvah. That's like, let's say, for example, someone's making a kiddush, and you don't want to be yotzeh, you don't want to be covered with that kiddush. You can have what's called a negative kavanah, which means I'm not being yotzeh that kiddush. So what that means is you would have to make kiddush again, and you wouldn't be able to eat with it. There's certain times of the year where this is pertinent, where you need to have what's called a negative kavanah, where you don't want to be yotzeh with the other individual. That's why they sometimes say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. That's one way. That by saying Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, you're saying you're making like a hefsek, and I'm not going to be covered. There's another way that sometimes they say you say Bershut Morai V'Rabotai, and then you'll see people say Shamayim.
Yeah.
They yell at Shamayim. What does Shamayim mean? What do you mean? Bershut Morai V'Rabotai. Bershut Morai V'Rabotai means with permission of my teachers and my rabbis. They say no, and with permission of heaven, which means you're trying to pass the buck, meaning with your permission, no my permission, like the permission of God. Okay, well there's another reason for that. The reason is that Shamayim stands for Shomei Yashmiya Yachdav Mikavenim. Shomei Mashmiya, meaning the one listening, the one that's saying, Yachdav Mikavenim. We have the same kavanah. So when he says Birshut Morai Rabotai, he's saying, guys, with your permission, everyone pay attention. They say Shamayim. Shamayim, they have two reasons. Not only saying with the honor of God, but they're saying, cover me, meaning have me in mind. Then he says the beracha, you don't have to say amen, and then he covers you with the beracha. That's the other reason. But sometimes, like for example, when it comes to the halil that we say in Hanukah, he says Birshut Morai Rabotai, everyone says Shamayim, but I have a negative kavanah when I say that, because I want to say the beracha of the halil myself. So I don't want the Hazan to say it for me. I want to say, I'm saying the whole Halil. I'm praising God.
So you say Shemayim?
So I say Shamayim, but I have a negative kavanah with it. Where my negative kavanah is, yes, I'm saying Shamayim to get along with everybody, but I'm saying the Halil by myself because I want to praise God for all the personal things that I'm thinking about also in my life along with it, which I thought was nice.
Let me ask you a question. So if the father goes away on a trip, how does that work with the children?
The mother would be first. Yeah, the mother would be first. The mother would be first. If she wants to have her older son do it, for sure she could, but the mother is required.
That's the next in line.
That the next in line would be the mother to do it. I'm sure there might be opinions with to put the boy, but if the mother's there, the mother should lie. Don't forget, we learned the other day that the ladies were part of the mitzvah. There were two Yehudits. There was one Yehudit from the family of the Chashmonaim of Matityahu, That was with the Hegmon. Then there was the other Yehudit that we read about on Sefer Yehudit, on the Sefarim Hetzonim, she was from the northern part of Israel, where she was a rich lady, Almana. Some say from Shevet Shimon, some say she was from a famous Kohen family, and she went out and she did so there too. And because of this, the Halacha says, and it's brought down that they were also part of the mitzvah, so they also have a requirement. So seemingly the lady would do it. We'll end with this, and then tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue. Baruch Adonai le'olam, Amen ve'amen.
That was good.